Welcome. Hi, I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and well-being. And I'm delighted that you're here. Kia ora, lovely people. Hey, hope you're having a great week. And today I'm so pleased to bring to you my conversation with one of my best mates on the planet, Anna Frost. Now, people who are interested in ultra endurance sport and the success of our fellow Kiwis will be well familiar with Anna. Anna is not only passionate about travelling and exploring new cultures, faces and places. Since 2004, she has been a professional mountain, trail and ultra runner, and she has really excelled in a number of different events, including winning the Hard Rock 100, one of the hardest mountain races on the planet, 2 years in a row, as well as some of the shorter vertical K challenges held around the world. You know, in between times though, anyone that follows Anna on social media will know that she really does, in addition to exploring and discovering the world, she uses those platforms as a way to share her own explorations and vulnerabilities with us and the highs and lows of life as a professional mountain runner, and then transitioning from that to life as a mum and as a coach. And Anna and I really do a deep dive into her entire journey from teenage triathlete to world-class mountain runner. Before we get into it, just so you know, you can find and follow Anna at frostyfootsteps.com on the internet, or at Anna Frosty on Instagram, or Anna Frost on Facebook. And she is absolutely open to engaging with people, as you'll know if you follow her. Anna is much more than a runner, as I'm sure you'll discover if you're not familiar with her. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Anna Frost. Anna, how are you?
I'm good, Mikki.
Good. Now tell you what, so I have just finished doing fried chicken. I was writing something, then I got bored and I thought, right, what can I do just to distract me and get me thinking? I'm like, I know, Braz makes a good fried chicken. I'm going to see if I can come up with one.
And how was it?
Amazing, actually.
Oh, good.
And I would like Braz and I to have a fried chicken.
Bake-off.
Basically a bake-off, yeah, because
Right.
he was supposed to send me through his recipe and he did not.
Oh, really? Well, maybe it's a secret one from his mum, because it's like from the deep south of Texas. So, you know, it might be one of those written into his family. Don't share with anyone.
That's true. You know, share it and I'll have to kill you type numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how is Dunedin? Is it a stunner today?
It is actually, and you wouldn't believe, but 6 orcas just went cruising down the harbour, and were frolicking out and having a feed, and had a wee baby with them and playing around at the beach. Incredible, totally incredible. They came in pretty close, and you could see their eye and that big white patch under their eye, and their fins were just their fins must be as tall as me.
Amazing.
So yeah, pretty special, really. So yeah, it's a pretty good day.
Do you know, so interesting, Anna, because I was doing some background research on you, one of my oldest friends, but I was doing some background research.
And were you in that background research as well?
I was actually.
Good.
And I was just really reflecting on just the change that you've had over the last few years. And of course, one of the most recent ones is you and Braz and Skylar returning to New Zealand and kind of settling in for the here and now. And I was really wondering about, you know, what impact that might have for you guys as a family, but also just, you know, in your surroundings, you know, because before that you spent a large part of your time in Colorado, and of course the landscape is so different there. So so for you to kind of come and kind of share that experience kind of tells me that from that side of things, you're certainly not missing out on kind of, you know, some of the beautiful places in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this so many times that I feel incredibly lucky and incredibly grateful to be able to share both parts of, two really amazing places on the planet, and that I can call them both home. one of my major passions in life is travel and exploring new places. And so for me to be able to move between these two places that I absolutely love is really amazing. And to have a career that allows me to do that has been obviously a huge benefit. But yeah, I think for me, having that place that you can call home, which is definitely Dunedin, no matter what's happening around everything, with this, how this world is crazy or the weather or whatever, I still feel a comfort coming back here. And I feel like, I know the ocean, and the ocean is that place that I need in my life to be able to see a horizon, to feel that space and to feel sort of earthed. And then obviously when we go to Colorado, there's no ocean in sight and it's just mountains, which I absolutely love, but I'm definitely not, there's some mountain people that are proper mountain people, like they do everything in the mountains. They do, skimo, they do mountaineering, ice climbing, all of that. And that's definitely not me. I'm more of a fair weather mountain cruiser. So, but, having at the moment, we had to come back to New Zealand because I was still on a visitor visa. So in America, so we had to come back, and that was during winter. And I don't think I've done a winter in Dunedin. Well, I haven't really done a winter in like 15 years. So that was definitely a bit of a shock for me. I have done a few, a couple of weeks in the snow and a couple of weeks here and there. And I always find that a big novelty, but I'm definitely not a snow person.
Now, I appreciate, and at least with Dunedin, with the weather, you can dress for the weather, but with the crazy of the rest of the world, you can't dress yourself against that. So, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils. And I totally appreciate what you say with the ocean and the mountain, because maybe it's because I'm a Dunedin girl as well, that's how I feel too. And I go to some more mountainous regions like Queenstown and Wanaka, and I absolutely love it. But then I think, man, if I had to, if this was my surroundings, this is where I lived, I probably would really miss the ocean. And it's not until I'm back near the ocean, although as a Dunedin person, didn't really spend much time in the water, more just
it's a wee bit
at the
cold.
water. It's a wee bit cold, but it's so lovely to be around. So I appreciate that.
And I think sometimes in mountains, and I'm sure lots of people will appreciate this, that you can go to these really, really massive mountains and you stand there and you look at them and you see all of these opportunities. And in Colorado, even more so, the opportunities, because in New Zealand, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but if you see a mountain in New Zealand, you can't necessarily just go walking up it because of farming or of private land, or that the bush is just too thick and you actually can't get through it unless you follow that one track. Whereas in Colorado, you see these endless mountains and there is endless opportunities, and it's totally up to your skill level if you think you can get across that ridge, or if you can shimmy around that lake, or if you can go across that range. And so I think the opportunities are so big and so numerous, and at the same time I get a little overwhelmed with that, because I stand there and I look at the mountain and I might have been up there already, but then I'm like, oh, but I could go that way. Oh, and I could go that way. And oh, what if I did that and that? And what if I went, oh, that way and that way? And what about at daytime and nighttime? And all of a sudden, like, you get a wee bit stressed and a wee bit anxious, like, oh, but I don't have enough time or energy to be able to manage all of that. So whereas when I'm at the ocean, I'm like, well, there's only a certain few things I can do, because one, I'm trying to learn to surf, and that's not beautiful. And I'm not an orca, so I'm not that beautiful in the water. So, I get on a stand-up paddleboard and have a swim around, and that's kind of it. And that's like, okay, I'm good.
Mate, that overwhelm is how I feel about Netflix, which is probably why we watch like one show at a time and then spend like half an hour kind of go, what would we watch next? Yours, though, much more interesting. And, part of my research, Anna, one, I have a question. Is your middle name actually Heather?
It is, yep.
I never knew that.
Okay.
Wikipedia told me that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm named after the heather in the British moors.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
And second of all, like, when you Google Anna Frost, you come up with all of these amazing pictures and all of these amazing places. And your running career and your passion for travel and running has really taken you absolutely worldwide and into some areas which I wonder, if you're looking back at, say, when you were younger in your teenage years or whenever it was that you took up running, could you ever have imagined that your life took the trajectory that it did?
No, absolutely not. And the other thing to that is that I didn't even really dream that it would. It was never a goal or a desire to be where I was. It sort of just happened by accident initially. And then I guess I really felt I wanted to live with sort of my doors wide open, and with an attitude where I should just take that step through that door of opportunity and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just take a different door. So I was always very much a yes person. I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. And because of that, everything just snowballed and developed and rolled and sort of just took its own course. Nothing of, I was always very determined, very passionate, and had high expectations of myself to achieve. But I never really had a direction. And it was just through the experiences, and some of them successful and some of them not, where you learn and say, oh, I did that race and I didn't do it very well, so I want to try and do that race or that distance again. And that sort of pushed me to continue focusing on that. Or I went, oh no, I didn't even like that, so I'll try something else. And so it was in about 2004 when I did the National Mountain Running Champs in Wanaka in Cardrona, and qualified for the World Championships in Italy. And that was really just one of those moments. I was like, okay, well, I may as well go. And I didn't have a particularly good race, but I saw that there was this whole new world of travel and places and people and running and events. And so that began sort of this, I guess, roller coaster of like, oh, this could be a really fun experience just to see where I can go.
Okay, so if it all began for you sort of into that 2004, like I'm thinking back before 2004, but when we used to catch up at Il Panificio,
yeah.
Eddie, Joe, you and I, and we'd chat, and I knew you as Anna the runner who was also a triathlete, and you were dabbling a bit in triathlon. So from there, obviously you progressed into the kind of mountain running scene, and you mentioned nationals, which then took you overseas. What kind of you mentioned that this showed you what you could have if you just said yes, I suppose, and took opportunities. How was it back in the early days? Like how, so you'd finished teachers college, you'd registered as a teacher as well, was that right?
Yeah.
Was it a big decision for you to go, I'm going to leave that behind and take this next step, like funding wise and all that? How did that kind of work?
Yeah, I guess I was still pretty like fresh out of school, and the passion for travel overrode everything, even running.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
And because I grew up traveling with my family, that was something that was instilled in us from when I was 1 year old, and we traveled to Papua New Guinea to live for 4 years. And from there, we traveled to the UK and to Australia, and, we traveled around. And so for me, travel was never a barrier for anything. And so the first year that I went to Europe for the racing like sort of the Grand Prix series, the World Series that they have over there, I just took bare minimum. I had barely any money. I just packed my backpack with my camping gear, and just went to one race, and then would just camp there in the area and explore, and then get on a train and go to the next place that someone had told me about where there was a race. So I had a very, very low budget, and actually in those days, races would give a little bit of travel money, so not a lot, maybe €50 here and there, to get on a train and come to their race. And so that was a really, really fun way to travel. And quite a few of us were doing that. And so you ended up with this little family who got on the train, went to the next race, sort of explored the area, and then did the race and moved on to the next one. And then I think I did about 6 months of that. And then I would return to New Zealand and do 6-month contract in teaching. And then sort of save that money and then pack up and go again. And I did that through till that was either in New Zealand or Wales. I was based there for a while as well, teaching. And I did that through to about 2009 when I was able to just earn enough money from winning races and a small, tiny wee bit of sponsorship. And we were starting to do a lot more of travel for sponsors, press conferences and meet and greet sort of run things. We did a road trip, I guess, down to South Africa and South America. So, it was the whole year on the road, so you definitely couldn't have a job. And that's sort of how I paid for things. It definitely wasn't something where I had a bank account loading up of money. It was just very much like just living from day to day, not saving much money, and not spending much money, but earning so much experience and earning so much in terms of travel and people.
Amazing. And then, at what time in your past, was in those years that you were just describing, was it that kind of penny dropped that actually you could make a decent living out of this if you got some sponsorship and like a major sponsor? And how did that progress?
Yeah, again, that was just something that kind of kept progressing, like snowballing. So when I was in the UK, my very, very first sponsorship was Innovate, and it was the owner and designer of Innovate. He saw me at a running race and he just said, "Your downhill was pathetic. You need to try these shoes." And I said, "Thank you very much," because my downhill was pathetic. And that shoe completely changed me, for my downhill running. And it gave me a lot more confidence in the rest of my running. And then in 2009, this sort of focus from adventure racing changed to the focus in trail running. And so all of a sudden these brands had a lot more money to put into trail running. And so Salomon reached out to me, Salomon UK it was, and said, "Oh, look, we'd like to send you to Nepal to do the highest marathon."
Is it the Everest Marathon?
Yeah, exactly. So I sort of spoke to Innovate and I said, "Oh, look, I've been offered this." And the owner at the time said, "Oh, you absolutely have to take that. I can't send you to Nepal. So do it, off you go." And so I went, and again, it was not, it was never like high profile sponsorships. It was just that they would give me a couple of pair of shoes. They were going to pay for me to go to this race in Nepal. And that was all I needed and all I wanted out of a brand. And then it was over, I know, 10, 15 years that I guess professional running became a thing, and that professional runners could sort of live, even though it's not like, trail runners are nothing like marathon runners or road runners where the money is so much higher, but it's enough that you don't actually have to work. And, that comes with that, though, is the focus on press conferences, on social media presence, and things that a lot of runners aren't actually that good at. And and so for me, that was a huge challenge in becoming the sponsored runner, is that, I ran because I wanted to run for the passion of running, for being out in the mountains on my own, not for being this like social influencer. And so that was definitely a huge hurdle to sort of learn about and accept, and I guess learn how to, balance both of those.
And I feel like in it, with you being who you are, you're so open and honest on social media. And I noticed that from very early on, like, even though obviously now your focus is different and what you might talk about is different, like you, as a role model, you've been a role model for young runners, female runners coming through. Did you find that a challenge, or any, I suppose, a challenge? Was that hard, or did you easily kind of use your position to put out messages? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, I think in general, social media, I was never very, I'm not very good at doing it. I'm not very good at like being present, spending time on my phone, communicating through social media. But it was something that I realized was inspiring for others, and therefore it was inspiring for me. And I also realized that, what story was I going to share if it wasn't a genuine and honest story?
Yeah.
And what was the point in sharing a story if it wasn't honest and genuine? So, I found it was just easiest to share exactly how I felt and what was going on, and my process and the footsteps. And for me, obviously, being a female is something that I am. And so that was also easy to be, an empowered and empowering female on social media, when there's not always honest and, I don't know, maybe attainable people out there. There's sometimes it's really easy to go, oh, that looks amazing, but I could never do that. Well, we're all role models, and so we have to kind of grab onto that and say, yeah, every single one of us is a role model for younger people in our worlds, or to other women in our worlds, or other guys in our world. And so without sort of the honest posts and honest approach to that, you would never see that. It would just, social media would just be filled with like, sort of blank pages.
Yeah, and it's so interesting what I noticed in your posts, and looking back at them just as I was doing a little bit of background for our talk. Like, I feel like you tackled topics well before a lot of other athletes did. And if I'm thinking about female athletes, like you talked about REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, years before it's really kind of taken hold in the wider kind of athlete experience. And so I feel like, and of course with pregnancy, with Skylar, and motherhood, and then, postnatal, not depression per se, but just mood challenges that you've had, like you're out there, you're being really honest and open, and you're being vulnerable, I suppose. And I think that's hard for anyone. Was that hard for you to share that stuff, Anna, or is it just, and I know you just said social media is hard, but have you grown more comfortable at sharing those stories?
Yeah, I think, at the time when I was going through it, maybe it was a little outlet to be able to, just put it down in words, write it down, and see if there were other people experiencing the same thing. And so, no, it wasn't that hard, because it was sort of a relief to do it. And I definitely found, after Skylar, I definitely went through postnatal depression, and it was something obviously I hadn't experienced before, but I hadn't really experienced that sort of depth of depression. And it was something I didn't understand or know. And there wasn't that many people around or on social media that could be like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Oh yeah, like, oh, well, this is what I did. This is what I did. And, or even coming back from an emergency C-section and trying to come back to an athlete. How do you do that? Is there not even an athlete, but just running or just being fit? There's actually not that much information. And I think being able to have that platform that I did have allowed me to reach out for myself and seek some help and seek some inspiration from other people too. So, it's saying at the same time that social media can be hard, it's also an incredible tool for connecting with other people.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I certainly noticed, like on the posts that you shared around those more vulnerable topics, there was certainly a lot of people who you could see that it resonated with a lot of people, and not because it was like, oh, Anna Frost is like this celebrity runner and she's experiencing it. It's more like, oh, another woman who's a mother is experiencing this too. You kind of connect at the real base level of mother, woman, grappling with this like little baby human that might have been really new for everyone, and I feel like, Anna, that's where you can really connect and do connect with your audience. Of course, you're an inspirational runner, and the running stuff is is what's kind of gotten you there, but I feel like people connect with you as a person because you connect with them and try and get that information as well.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad that you could see that, Mikki.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, so if I do go back to your running,
Mhm.
And you've had some amazing race results, like Hard Rock 100, of course, the Everest Mountain, Marathon Mountain, which I think
it's just Everest Marathon.
there you go, where you had like the record time by like 27 minutes, a host of firsts and seconds and podiums. And do you have like a favorite event, a favorite race?
There's just been so many, and I often think I wish I had taken a diary right from the start, because I have almost forgotten some of the races I did earlier on in my career. So one day I might sort of go through that and rack my brain and see if other people can help me and remind me what races I did do. But for sure, there's some that stand out. The Himalayas for me are an incredible place, not just the mountains and the trails, but the people are just so loving, so giving, so sharing. And a place that I will continue to go to for as long as I can. So that Everest Marathon was a pretty big highlight. Hard Rock 100 is very it's one of my most recent races that I was really, really driven for. And I guess meeting Hard Rock was pretty cool, because I had sort of lost, not that I had a direction before, but I really didn't have a direction. And so when I had gone to Hard Rock to crew for Killian, I went out running on the course, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe that where we were running was actually the course. And I just fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the race, and could see how there was this family connected to it. And so the next year I went back, and I had to do a qualifying race, which was the 100-mile race. And so I did that and qualified, and then got into Hard Rock the year after. And it was just mind blowing. I trained so hard for it. I put everything on the line for it. And it wasn't even about the win. It was just about getting that thing finished, because it's such a beast. But to have the win was obviously another nice little touch. But just a fantastic race. And so that was definitely, and is definitely, in my blood. I went back the next year and won it in the opposite direction. So they run it in opposite directions. Yeah, so you almost get this brand new race, but in this very familiar place. And then I did it one more time, and then the last time it was actually run, I volunteered at an aid station right in the middle of the course, up on this little ledge, and that was really cool. A really nice way to still be involved with the race, but not missing it, and sort of giving back and being part of the success of people getting through the course. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily just about the races that I do anymore. It's also about like being part of the event, being part of the community of people there, helping out with the organizers, and seeing different sides of different races.
Yeah, and like I was thinking that as you were kind of describing that experience, because did you crew for Killian in about 2013 or something like that?
I think it was 13.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
And then so that's, a good few years kind of devoted to training for Hard Rock, and then of course taking those two wins, 2015, 2016. And think back into the dark recesses of your mind. What was your training like? Like, talk to me about like what a training week might have looked like as you were peaking towards an event like that.
Yeah, I trained like an animal. And I definitely don't have that animal inside me anymore. It was, I was living up on the course. I was living in the back of the car, camping out of there, parking at all the trailheads or at the camping grounds out in the mountains. And I would just eat, sleep, run, repeat. And, I was doing sort of 8 hours a day on the course.
Amazing.
Every single day for about 8 weeks. I really put into that with about that load.
Yeah.
Sort of a couple of key sessions that I tried to do sort of more mentally was like 10,000 foot vert days just on the course, which is, very easy considering the course is so steep. actually getting the vert is really tiring when you're, exhausted from the day before. And within that training, I also would do some swimming and some cycling, and I did a massage every week just to keep everything like smoothed out. My food was fairly basic because I was living in the back of the car. So I had those bags of pre-cooked rice that I would just sort of throw into a salad every night, and granola and banana and blueberries for breakfast. And lunch was sort of on the trail, so whatever trail snacks I had with me, just because I was out all day. So I'd go into the little towns every now and then and get a big burger and some sweet potato fries and load up again and head back out. So it was very, very, very focused for the race.
Yeah. And was it just you, Anna, or did you have your Salomon teammates alongside as you were doing these kind of like key focused blocks? Or is it very much, was it a solo exercise?
No, I think, during that 8 weeks, there was definitely different people coming and going from the area that would come and do the training with me or come camp with me. And so it definitely wasn't solo, but, not the whole thing, but I was definitely, the main motivation was from myself to get out and go.
Yeah. Okay. And any coach? Like obviously as part of a team, I imagine you would have had access to coaches, but did you use that or not? Like, was that not?
No, I think, way back when I was doing a little bit of triathlon and then had got into mountain running, I was coached with John Hallemans. And I feel like he had set me up pretty well then to be able to go on my own and with some really good ideas and a really good foundation. And I think with something like an ultra, it's so hard because obviously you don't want to train so hard that you go into the red and you're over trained. But how do you know where that is if you don't go close or even go over at one point or another? So for me, ultra running and training is about experience. And I really don't think you can follow a training program so specifically when you're training so specifically for one race, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes.
You have to have your own opinion. You have to have your own, like, a really good vision and a really good feel of how is this training working for me. Of course, you could follow a program, but you have to be really honest and or with your coach and say, look, I am near the line, or this is too much, or this is not enough. I need to get closer. And so it's definitely out there. For me, I felt that at the time I was just sort of doing what I could to not step over the line. And it would be so hard for a coach to say, okay, do this training today, just purely because I was like living in the mountains on the trail. So what's the coach going to say? Oh, today you need to do a track session.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, it would actually take me like 2.5 hours to drive to a track. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to be very intuitive when you're like living like I was, where I was living for the race, and say, I'm so involved with this that I have to be so in tuned with this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a little more open to doing, races where you've got a block of races and you've got a block of training and you've got a job and you've got crazy kids, or you just feel like you need some discipline and a routine so that you don't have to think about it all the time because you're busy, and you just want to see, oh, I've got 1 hour, what's my training today? I think that's a really valuable time to have a coach.
Yeah.
Because then it just takes a lot of the stress away from thinking, oh, what should I be doing today?
Yeah.
Whereas for me, that's all I had to do for the day.
Yeah.
So I guess that's sort of the beauty of being the professional runner, was that I didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah. And as well, if I'm thinking back to kind of when that was, 2014 onwards, like we didn't have the access to the same data that athletes have now. There are no GPS, Garmin, HRV wasn't really a thing, no Aura Ring or Whoop Band, anything which you can use for that objective feedback. And, in a lot of your posts, Anna, and some of your blogs, you talk about having that intuition and that kind of body feel, and really assessing how you feel as the athlete each day to kind of assess, the type of training. And you're so in tune, and I feel like that's probably really held you in good stead for most of your career. But you have had some injuries, didn't you, along the way?
Yeah, for sure. And that was the whole part of, like I was saying, how do you know where your line is if you don't step over it every now and then?
Yeah.
And so for me, injuries are part of training, and injuries are part of trying to get better. And or doing something different. I'm not saying that you need to get injured to get better, but sometimes when you're training at such a high level, or training so much or so differently, that's kind of your warning that, oh, okay, that was too much, or that was too intense, or I don't need to be doing that on my body now. So and I think, like you're saying, with programs like Training Peaks, coaching programs, and watches, they're so incredible now. Like they have, the Garmin watches, the Polar watches, they have all the data right there, right on your wrist, and you don't necessarily even have to look at what the data is. You can just upload it. It puts it all into this beautiful sheet for you, and either that goes to your coach, or you can look at it and say, oh, I can see that this is, a little bit of overtraining right now. My watch is saying detraining, so I better get out and go and do some running after this. But your watch tells you, like, you need to do something, or my watch says, like, you need to do some cardio, or it's time to do some stretching. So I really think that there are a lot of benefits to having the structure in the watch taking and the heart rate monitoring. But I think it at the base of it, at the root of it, when you're out there on the trail and or on the road doing your marathon, and you're like in that dark patch and everything's really sore and hard and painful, you can't reach back to your watch.
Yeah.
You have to listen to what's going on inside and say, okay, I'm dehydrated, or my legs are blowing up, or my ankle's injured, or my head's not in this. And you have to know how to deal with those, and that only comes from experience and listening to your body during training.
Yeah, and you just really described that so well, because it really is the art and the science, right, of running, or of any sport, plus coaching as well. So, and I know, and I want to have a chat to you soon about your new coaching business that you've got up and running. But I imagine that you've had the experience of both, and so bringing them together and working with athletes to teach them how to listen to themselves, yet also not be governed by the numbers, I think is such an important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, Anna, obviously we talked about your career highlights. Are there any races that you look back on and I'm not thinking, big regrets or anything like that, but what were some of the biggest challenges or races that didn't go well? Did any stick out for you, or was it all just part of the experience and you've just kind of learned from them and gone on?
Yeah, I think there was definitely races where, none of them I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a disaster. I mean, there were a few disasters, but races where I didn't finish. But yeah, like you said, none of them were something that I regret or something that I didn't learn from. I learned massively from them. I think my biggest disaster was at the World Mountain Running Championships. I think that was 2005, and it was actually in Wellington, New Zealand. And I had done a bit of a obsessive and definitely over the top. Remember old school, like, don't eat the carbs before the race, and then eat the carbs before the race. So I obviously did like that to an extreme, which doesn't really surprise me. And I just didn't have enough glucose during the race to call on when my muscles were screaming at me for more energy, and collapsed on the second lap. And I don't even remember getting picked up and taken to the tent. They had me on all the like ECG things, and my legs were in major cramping, and I had to go to the hospital, and it was just a complete disaster. And that was purely from sort of a mistake on my own side of like trying something new before a race, I guess. and probably not listening to my body enough before the race. And so, I mean, it was fine. I learned from it, and I learned not to do that again. So I didn't.
And how was fueling for you, Anna? Like, so with your hard, like, you know, you described that massive, like really intense focused block for hard rock. Outside of that, when you were just generally training and racing, what did your fueling look like?
Yeah, I think you know, during those phases of really big training, I think it's a really, really important to fuel, like in general, just fuel, because you're using up so much. And even you know, that race, hard rock, is up at elevations. So when you're up high in the mountains, it's actually quite hard to get food in. So you tend to not eat too much during the day, and so you really have to shovel it in, because otherwise the next day you'll just be kind of exhausted. I've never been very, very, you know, good with a diet, like a specific diet, following a good diet, but I've never been bad either at, you know, eating junk food, or I eat lots of chocolate, but I think that's pretty okay. But, you know, for me, with the hormone balance, I really found to kind of keep my weight at a sort of stable weight, having sort of a higher fats, good fats like avocados and olive oils and nuts was really, really good for me. And it just sort of helped keep a steady weight. And it also definitely kept injuries away from ligaments and joints. And I think it just helped sort of hold that energy a little bit longer as well.
Yeah. And I like in any sport, I think, as a female, and particularly as a female role model, not that I've ever been a female role model, but you
Oh, of course you have,
do you
Mikki.
get was there ever a pressure to be like a different size, be different from who you are as part of that? Because you often hear that from runners, and particularly in light of, you know, if I'm thinking about the marathon running scene and what's been going on over at Nike, and with the girls coming out with stories about coaches weighing them before sessions and telling them to lose 2 kilos. Obviously you didn't have that same coach athlete relationship, but did you feel the pressure as a professional runner to be a certain way, or no?
I don't really feel like that is in trail running sports.
Yeah.
I feel like trail running is a lot more accepting and a lot more open to that we all come in different sizes and shapes, and you really don't have like the model trail runner. You know, there's tall skinny ones, there's short squat ones, there's like beefy muscly ones, there's little springs. And I think that's why I love trail running so much, because you can just be who you are. I never had any problems, you know, being told or thinking that I should be different size. I did, you know, I guess very, very early on, when I did go to the World Championships in 2004, I definitely did have some, you know, like, I guess a scary feeling on the start line, because there was these women who were so extremely fit. You know, they didn't have an ounce of fat on them. They were so strong looking, and that was definitely intimidating. And so I think for me, the processing wasn't about me losing weight or being like them. It was that they were just who they were. And I knew that I was strong and fit, and that I had to have confidence in myself. And I think I had gone to a sports psychologist that next year, and he had said to me that we were all just a wheel. And we were all just trying to make our engines go. And all of our wheels were different. They had different rugs on them and different lugs on them, and different compound and different texture and different makes and different brands, but we all had to go around, and we all had to get up the mountain. And so for me, that was a really, really great thing, a tool for me to hang on to every time when I was on that start line, so that I didn't like get myself in a tiz and go, oh my gosh, look how strong and fit everyone is, and what about me? That I could just say, oh, I'm just another tire, and you know, we'll see how mine goes today, and really like personalize it and say, well, I've done the training, I've done the hard work, and let's see what happens on the line.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I so agree with you with that trail running if you, on the face of it, it does seem really different from road running. But equally, I feel like, and because so many more people are doing road running, there is like more acceptance now, maybe not in the elite, but just in the people who do it, that it's not about being the smallest you can be, it's about being the fittest you can be and the strongest you can be. And like you got to be able to run up those hills, you got to be able to take those down hills, and actually outside of all of that, you just got to stay on your feet, and you can't
get to the finish line.
Exactly. And if you're if your mind's gone because you're not fueling properly and you don't have the energy available to be able to make good decisions, then you've just, there's your whole race gone.
Well, and even before you get to the race, if you're not fueling right and you're doing the training, you're not even going to be able to get to the start line. And I often say that's the hardest part of a race, is getting to the start line, because you have so many sacrifices for that. And once you're there, it's kind of the easy part. Then you just go and do it, and you just dig deep and put everything out on the line. But if you're not fueled, and if you're not sort of sensible and in tuned and listening to yourself, then getting to that start line is really, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, totally. And if we just kind of move you forward a little bit in your kind of history, like, did you, or first actually, before I do that, any like inspirations or mentors or any individuals that you can kind of like think, yeah, they really had a big influence on the direction that my career took, or how I viewed running and how I trained, like anyone like that for you?
I think it's quite interesting that when I sort of started in the trail running, it was this new thing. Trail running was booming, and no one had been a professional runner before. No one was doing it as their sport. It was kind of the start. And so I think probably the people that I looked up to the most were the peers that were all around me, also going through this experience with me.
Yeah.
Because we were kind of just there for each other, and we were, encouraging each other and supporting each other and going to these new races with each other. So it was kind of like this moving support group. And I think they're all very, very dear friends. They're all international from all over the world, and we were all running for the pure love of it. We weren't running because it was really good for our bank accounts. We were doing it because we loved it, and we wanted to explore and meet new people. And so I think it was all of those people, to name a few, like Ricky Gates and Francois Dehaene, Nuria Picas and Emily Forsberg, Killian Jornet. They were all part of this. Ryan Sands as well. They were all part of this group right at the start, that we were sort of just doing this exploring of this new sport and this new world. And I think without their support and their sort of, ability to be our like family on the road, then I don't know if I would have been able to continue doing it, because it was, those people that really made it accessible.
Yeah.
I think, I always saw Lizzie Hawker as an amazing woman. She was probably trail running way, way, way before I was, and had probably even started more the direction of trail running, but people just didn't know about her. She was very quiet and sort of hidden, and just running again because she loved it. And so when I did get to run alongside her, I did really see how passionate she was about it, and still is about it. So I think it was all of those people that instilled the passion in me, rather than actually seeing someone to follow.
Mm-hmm. I guess with that, like, do you miss that now, Anna? Like, if you're, as you've kind of you transitioned out of that professional role and now running, does running still mean the same to you now, or has your relationship changed with running now?
Yeah, I mean, it always goes through different phases. I think everyone's running does. You always run for different reasons. And so I went from being a passionate runner to running purely because the brand told me to, and then wanting to quit, and then refinding my love for running. At the same time that I found my love for running again, it was a self-acceptance that I was who I was. and running was just something I did.
Mm.
And that really allowed me to run with my passion again, just with my heart. And then finding hard rock sort of gave me a whole new drive to run, with these huge expectations of myself. And then going into pregnancy, running was just sort of an enjoyable ride of this new body and new shape. And then after pregnancy, it's really been a huge battle to try and get any strength back, and just trying to get running without pain and with a little bit of flow again. So, definitely now if someone said to me, you can never race again, but you could go out for a run and for an hour or 2 hours and be pain free, would you do it? And I'd say absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like I say, when I was doing hard rock, I was training with an animal, but I'm definitely not that same animal. I'm definitely a softer approach, but still I think with the same passion. When I go running, I still get that same sense of freedom and calm and clarity. And I think, whether I'm running 30 minutes or 30 hours, I'm still finding that thing that, of why I run.
Yeah, lovely. And I'm just going to take you back a little bit. So I have this mate, and she on Facebook wrote once that no man will ever love me the way running does. I feel like for you that isn't true, because now you've got a husband.
Mm-hmm.
When did Braz come onto the scene?
Yeah, so we met at Hard Rock.
Which year?
And it was a couple of don't get me in trouble here, Mikki. One of the Hard Rocks we met.
Great.
And then we met up at the next Hard Rock. I don't know what year. And then he helped me through my first Hard Rock, so 2015.
Yeah.
We traveled a little bit later on that year, and I guess he was in a place as well where he had found running from a different background than me. An American, grew up in Oklahoma, had moved to Colorado to kind of, he'd traveled and then moved to Colorado, so he'd sort of seen a bit of the world and realized that there was so much more to the world than Oklahoma. So so he had this really hugely growing passion. I don't even really know if he knew who I was at the time as a runner. And so we both had that desire to travel more as well, and so we traveled to Peru and Ecuador that year, and then the next year we went out to Madeira in Portugal, the Portuguese island, and just sort of fell in love with the idea of traveling, and how can we make that something together as a business. And so we thought, we'll bring people to Madeira, it's incredible here. And so that was sort of our starting of not only our partnership in life, but also in our Trail Run Adventures business, where we said, well, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to travel freely together, and also bring people to have these amazing experiences with us.
That's amazing. And I love how that, you've kind of kept that running, the whole, I suppose, the running environment that you were so used to as a professional runner, to get up, run, explore, different areas and stuff. You've taken that and you've turned it into a business, albeit at the minute maybe on hold a little bit because of COVID. Post-COVID, that's still something which is there to continue to kind of, I suppose, see your passion through.
Yeah, and I think, we've had sort of 4 years up until now to build those trips already, and so we have absolutely fantastic local guides who are in those places already, in Japan and Ecuador and Madeira and Norway. And so our trips now obviously were on hold last year, but this year, we've opened them back up again, and hoping that people locally can travel to their trips in their areas so that we can continue doing it. We won't be able to be the guides, but the locals will be there to guide them.
That's amazing. That's such a good sustainable business model as well. Like people, you'll be able to live vicariously through their running adventures in their neck of the woods, right?
Exactly.
You've recently finished up a one just in Queenstown, is it in the Queenstown area?
Yeah, in Ben Lomond, over the back of the Ben Lomond Mountain. On the back there's a whole big Ben Lomond station. It's private land, and they've got this little lodge on there. I've been there quite a few times for the Shot Over Moonlight Marathon race that goes on in there, and just it's so amazing. It's just mountains galore. And so we had a trip there. I think we had 15 guests with us, and everyone did amazingly. We had options every day for people that wanted to go longer or shorter or faster or slower. We had plenty of guides, or 3 guides, so we could kind of split the groups to whatever people were feeling. We had a helicopter on the second day to drop us off out on the property and run back on the trail. So obviously the helicopter flight was pretty incredible. And so we have decided to run another trip in probably early April, the same trip, but just to open it up again so that more people get an option of doing that again. Because for me, it's an incredibly special place to be able to run when you can land on private land. It's not like running a trail in your area or even one of the great walks where you bump into lots of other people walking the same way. With this, there is no one out there.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty special.
That's amazing. And I think what I love about these types of adventures and trips is that, people call running a solo, individual sport, but part of the reason we love to run is that camaraderie and that kind of being around like-minded people and to experience beautiful places. And, in some ways, COVID has really enabled a lot of us to refocus our attention on our beautiful country and what we've got right in front of us, rather than always looking afield and going, oh, I want to be in this other place, outside of New Zealand. We are able to experience New Zealand for what it is, which is, I think, really special.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And obviously things have shifted for you. You've moved running to a different place, and maybe now you're viewing it from the kind of the original place with which you started, maybe. And you've always been such an inspiration for people, and I'm really excited now that you're coaching. And I remember chatting to you about doing a plan for or who you might recommend as a coach. And this is before you were a coach. And you were a little bit like, well, the problem with coaches is that they always overtrain people. And I know obviously you don't think everyone overtrains people, but in your experience, particularly in this ultra running sport, that's what you see a lot. What other mistakes might people make when they're training for something like an ultra?
I think the biggest mistake is that you don't listen and listen to everything. Like, are you fueled right? Have you got an injury? Have you got a niggle? Have you gone to a physio and they've said you need to do these exercises and you've walked out of there and not done them? When you're doing an ultra, it's not just about getting strong running. When you're doing an ultra, your whole entire body and system is under stress. So if you're not swimming and doing sit-ups and doing toe exercises and drinking those electrolytes and taking your immunity tablets and, I don't know, doing everything else, having your salt bath, getting the right clothing, putting on your chafing nut butter at the start of your run, getting the right pads, wearing the right hair ties, it's because you're out there for so long that everything matters. And it's not just that one race day, because every run you do, you're out there for ages, or it's got to add to your package of ultra running. So it's you really have to be so diverse. You really have to be very open-minded to change, and to changing things up. So if you get an injury and you can't run, well, then bike instead, go swimming instead, power hike. You have to have an open mind that just because you're not running doesn't mean that you can't train for an ultra. because ultras need strength over everything. Strength for your mind. Are you doing your meditations? Are you doing your yoga? And so I think the biggest mistake is that we get so finely focused on running, the straightforward action. And what happens when something comes in from the side, whether it's a rock that you're trying to run around, or an injury, or something stressful at work, or a week where you actually have to go to a town and you don't have trails run on. What are you going to do instead? So I think we tend to get, and, you know, with the training program, and now that I'm coaching, you know, I can see how it's very easy to happen. For me, you know, I went through a phase where I didn't wear a watch at all because I didn't need a watch. I just wanted to go and then come back. It didn't matter how far I went or how much uphill I went. I know how much uphill I did because it hurt, you know. Now having these watches that are so clever, and for me, having a watch was some external motivation. And I think, you know, because watches are so clever now that they can do that. But and I use Training Peaks in my coaching programs, and so I'm setting these programs, and so I can see how it's very easy to get very like, oh, this is my program. And I always say, and I always think like, are you, you know, take your watch if you want to run because it's good to upload it, but could you put it in your backpack for today and not look at it on your wrist, or not even see, oh, my heart rate's pretty high, or how long have I been running, or how fast am I running? Put it in your backpack because then you've got the distance, but feel how you're feeling and see where you're going and see how it looks when you're going that fast.
Mate, such a good point. And just as a so I was at Park Run this morning, and love.
Oh, nice!
Honestly, it's one of the best
an amazing
inventions for running over the however many, you know, however long, like 6 or 7 years. And so one of our mates there, Tom, he was talking about how he'd come back to Park Run the week before, and he's very focused on his data. Like Tom has a Garmin, and he also has a Whoop band as well, you know, like, so he's all about the data. Okay. Yeah, it's just brilliant. And he's running along, and he knows where his heart rate would normally sit at a particular point in the race. And he was not feeling too bad, but he looked down and saw that his heart rate was 180, which is 40 beats above where he would normally see it, even though he was feeling the same way he would normally feel. His watch was giving him information. What a mind, you know, it's such a mind trick.
But then he thinks he's having a heart attack, so he slows down.
Basically, yeah. So what you just said with putting your watch in the backpack or somewhere where you can't see it is so great, because people don't want to not have their watch, because if it doesn't go on Strava, then did it even happen? But they don't want to be slaves to the data as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, I see that from my coaching, that it's really nice. I think a lot of people struggle with the consistency, and with my coaching, or with my, you know, if someone was to ask me my top tips, I always say consistency, because your body learns and your body remembers. If you're just doing a run here and a run there and then biking here, your body sort of gets out of a flow and out of the routine of like, okay, I get this. Yep. On Tuesdays, that's my hill repeat day. So you begin to look forward to Tuesdays because you're like, it's my hill repeat day. Whoopee.
Yeah.
And then, or, you know, Sundays are my long run. And what happens with that is that everything around you, whether it's your family or your nutrition or your cycles, you just get into this routine and your body remembers what's going on.
Yeah.
And you start to get this flow and rhythm. And I think with that consistency, progression comes easier.
Yeah.
And I think fitness comes easier because your body can respond.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's the beauty of doing something like a watch and a training program on something that's very visual, like Training Peaks.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know what I love about your experience and what you would bring to that coaching relationship. And I just remember a time when, this was years ago, like it was maybe 2007, and you were staying with me in Mount Eden, and I had a niggle under my foot and I wasn't going to run. It was a bit of plantar fasciitis. And of course, even though I'd been running for years, I obviously didn't have the same experience as you. And you were like, no, you just need to rub that out. That'll actually be fine. We can run tomorrow morning. And you like gave it a good hard rub. And then we went running up Mount Eden and I was completely fine, you know?
Yeah.
And so what I think would make coaching with you really different, Anna, is that you understand the body and you understand what the body knows as well. And you can be that little bit of a guide for your athlete if they're not so experienced in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. And I have had so many experiences and so many different things. And if it hasn't been me, it's been a friend or someone that I've been around to watch go through the process. And so, of course, we have to write our own story, you know. I can't just write you a book and you follow it and it be the same for you. We have to write our own books, but we can take little snippets of each person's books. And so by doing that, it means that you know, if one of my athletes is saying, oh, you know, I've got bad period cramps, I don't want to run this week. Well, then, you know, we'll look at their cycles and we'll make their program adjust so that in period week, we don't do big runs. It's an easy week, you know, and because that was the same with me. And, or with an injury, I know that if I can't run, I can still power hike all day long and come out of it so fit. I think it was 2010 or 12. It could have been. There was the Commonwealth mountain running championships in the UK in Keswick, and I'd had a knee niggle for 3 months that I wasn't able to run, and I was out in the Alps. In Europe and was just living out of my camper van and just hiking 5 or 6 hours a day, hiking really fast up and down mountains. And the New Zealand team had called me up and said, could you be our fourth counter because we need a fourth number to make up the team? And I said, oh, yep, sure. You know, it's not going to be pretty, but I'll drag myself to the top. And as I was getting towards the race, I still wasn't running. I was only power hiking, but I felt so good. I felt so long and strong and lean. And I got into the race and I smashed it. I just had, you know, so much balance and strength in me from all of that hiking. I didn't have the impact. I didn't have the injury anymore. And had the best race of my life, or one of the best races of my life. And I power hiked for 5 or 6 months. So I think, you know, it's just about being very, very open to hearing other people's experiences and to being able to say to other people, look, just try this. It might not work, but let's just try it.
Amazing. And Anna, I see on your website that you offer people like a one-off kind of training plan that they can submit for you to write for them, like a 12-week option.
Yeah.
Are you taking individual clients as well right now?
Yes. So we've got, like you say, the training packages where you send me in your basic information. I'll ask you a whole bunch of questions. We'll have a chat and I'll write you a 12-week program. I think we'll also do a 16-week one in case people want more. And I'll write that up and we can chat, you know, sort of halfway through and see how you're going if you need any updates. Or I call it my full-on package. And that's, like I say, it's full on. I'll kneel down in front of you and bow to you to go and do your training and whip you and say, come on, let's go. And, you know, update your training whenever you need. You can text me, call me, and just sort of be there. You know, for me, ideally, I'd be right there, you know, being able to go out running with my runners, but obviously we can't do that. But that's the beauty of being so online, is that you can keep in touch so easily from America to, you know, all of Europe and New Zealand. And so with that program, it's on Training Peaks as well. And it's a very, very thorough program.
That's awesome, Anna. And to have, you know, for people, I don't know how many people actually know you coach, to be honest. So this is such a good opportunity to tell people about that, because like having you, someone who is so experienced and so knowledgeable, guide someone through their running, like that is an amazing opportunity for any runner, basically, regardless of ability.
Yeah. And it's something that I've always dreamt of doing. I just haven't really had the right timing, I guess. So right now it felt right.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we go.
Perfect. And just before we finish up, what kind of training and stuff are you doing right now? Like, so what does it look like for you?
For me, I don't follow my advice. I haven't really been very consistent at all. I did go through a phase after having Skylar of actually feeling quite fit and strong again. Then I just had some back pain coming up that I just could not get on top of. And I'm not guessing, I know that came from having the emergency C-section, and then probably bumping up the running far too much and far too quickly without refocusing on building that core strength, and sort of just thinking, oh well, it will come back eventually, I'll get strong. That's not correct. It hasn't come back, and it won't until I do some work. So at the moment I'm knuckling down on focusing on stretching and focusing on core strength and yoga, and I'm doing some runnings, a couple of hours here and there during the week.
Nice.
But definitely nothing structured, nothing consistent.
Yeah. It sounds to me though that you're listening to your body, and I mean you've always been active. And I know just from our friendship that even though you're sitting there saying I'm not very consistent, I'm not very active, there's probably not too many moments of the day that you actually sit down. This might actually be one of the longest times that you would have sat down, and this is that conversation.
I think I need to book in. I think I need to book in more podcasts with you, because then I can sit down and Skylar is off with her dad, and it means that I actually get a break, because she is pretty consistent with her activity
24/7 as I understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I would love to open it up to our listeners actually to see whether we can have a Q&A with you after this podcast goes out, because I love picking your brain, and I know that I would have asked maybe an absolute small fraction of what other people want to know. So if you're open to that, I would love to have you back.
Yes, let's do that.
Fabulous. Well, Anna, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put obviously links to your website, your coaching services, and obviously Instagram, Facebook. I don't think I actually need to direct too many people to find you, because most people obviously know about you, and I'm just so privileged to be able to call you a friend and also call on you to come chat to me. So thank you so much, Anna.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mikki.
Right, team, hopefully, you really enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. And, so much of what Anna says really resonated with me. And, she really does connect with us kind of, I suppose, mere mortals, if you like, and people who haven't been in that professional runner space. And she really does put a spin on it that is just so vulnerable and open to those highs and lows of being a professional runner. And also she's so open about that transition and some of the challenges she had, knowing full well that by her sharing her story, she's opening up those conversations and that dialogue so others can connect and share their stories as well, because that is just, part and parcel of that healing process. As I said, head on over to frostyfootsteps.com and check Anna out. Next week, really, this is one for you geeks out there, and runners and Ironman athletes. Actually, it's for everyone, because I get to talk to Dr. James O'Keefe, who is a cardiologist who specialises in health and longevity and lifestyle, and we do a really deep dive into the athlete heart. Until then though, you can catch me at Mikki Williden over on Twitter and Instagram, where I share pretty much everything that goes on in my day. Over on Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or hop on over to my website, mikkiwilliden.com, and you can connect with me for a one-on-one or family consultation, or jump on board one of my nutrition online coaching plans, where I help people navigate that space of weight loss, longevity diets, or really just how to put together a good diet to feed yourself and subsequently your family. So that involves meal plans, it involves shopping lists, being able to connect with me to individualize your diet, in addition to any other nutrition questions you may have, weekly emails where I really do a deep dive into what I'm interested in, and a Tuesday night forum where we connect over on the Facebook members only page, and we get to answer questions and ask questions that other people may also be interested in. So until then, team, you have a great week. See ya.